It's not about doing everything perfect day one, buying the perfect diet, getting the perfect macros. It's about implementing habits along the way.
Welcome to the show where we help you make smart nutrition simple. If you want proven nutrition strategies to help you build a better body and create the energy to show up for your family without overly restrictive and unrealistic dieting, then you're in the right place. Make sure to subscribe and enjoy this episode.
What is going on, my friends? Welcome back to another episode of the Smart Nutrition Made Simple show. I'm your host, as always, Ben Brown, owner and head coach here at Body Systems, where we help you change the belief system around what it means to be healthy. We do that through our nutrition, strength, and lifestyle coaching programs. Now, today I'm excited to share a New Year's special episode that I recorded with my friend Bryan Fitzsimmons, who is host of the Fit 40 podcast. Now, this is a part 2 of our 2-part series, talking all about setting New Year's goals and the mindset shifts necessary that end up being far more important than the diet and the exercise components themselves. So in part 1, which is hosted over on the Fit 40 podcast, and the link to that episode, which I would encourage you to catch first, is down in the show notes. So you might want to pause this, go check out episode 1, have a listen, then come back and listen to part 2. Either way, you're going to get a ton of value, but I would strongly encourage you listen to them both. But in part 1, Bryan interviews me all about the exercise component of setting New Year's goals, the value of strength training and having lean muscle mass, and the role that exercise plays in long-term health. And we talk a lot about the kind of mindset shifts required around kind of getting in the gym, staying in the gym, factoring in exercises that you love, and how to do it in a way where you're actually going to get those benefits. And then in today's part 2 conversation, I interview Bryan as we discuss the nutrition and the behavior change aspect of weight loss and how and why things can feel more challenging as we get older. I loved the ease of this conversation and really the 1-2 punch style of these episodes, and I'm confident that you will too, especially if you want the no-nonsense guidance on how to set yourself up for weight loss success in 2025. So if you've got New Year's resolutions and you know it's going to revolve around your nutrition, your exercise, and what's going on in between the ears, then I guarantee you're in the right place. So hold on to your hat. Let's go ahead and jump in. And I hope you find a ton of value in these conversations. All right, Bryan Fitzsimmons, welcome to the Smart Nutrition Made Simple show. Good to have a conversation again.
Yep. Thank you for having me. I'm pumped to be on.
So we just recorded episode 1. So for those of you guys who are tuning in here on the Smart Nutrition Made Simple show, what I want you to do is strongly consider stopping this right now. And I want you to go over, and by the way, the link is going to be in the show notes, but I want you to go over and listen to episode 1 of this 2-part podcast that Bryan and I are in the process of recording, or just recorded, because this is going to be episode 2. Now, in episode 1, Bryan and I talked all about kind of setting New Year's resolutions. We talked about kind of what are the things that we need to think about as we roll into the new year, specifically around exercise and kind of the mindset around exercise. And Bryan interviewed me kind of for that episode 1 portion. And now I have Bryan over on our show here with you, which is where we can resume and start talking about part 2 of this episode, which is the mindset and nutrition around kind of New Year's and looking ahead to 2025 and how we should be looking at navigating things. So thank you for being here, Bryan. Great to have you. I'm excited to dig in. So let's just kick things off. You know, we are talking all about the new year. How important is mindset and nutrition in the context of like New Year's resolutions?
It's huge because, I mean, I know a lot of people, like we covered in that first episode, is like people are going to go bonkers on the exercise. And there unfortunately are going to be a lot of people who go nuts on exercise, expecting it to take care of all the results, even though nothing changes with their nutrition. And they're just super active, which is awesome. But this is a 2-part equation. You need the nutrition to match the exercise to get the results that you want.
What's the problem with the way that the average person thinks about nutrition and weight loss? Since we can all agree, as we roll into the new year, we're trying to make changes. Um, what's the problem with the way that people think about and implement nutrition strategies, especially around the new year?
I think it's two parts. Number one is this idea that it needs to be all consuming. Like every bit of energy that you have needs to be devoted to eating certain specific foods, whether it's like a specific meal plan or only this type of food or cutting out this type of food. And it's this very big, grand thing. And it's almost like a product of point number two, which is the fact that a lot of people see eating well and diets in general as these products that are to be bought and to be just implemented immediately. And you expect it to be perfect day one going forward. When in reality, when it comes to actually improving your nutrition and changing your lifestyle and getting the results that you want, it could not be further from that, which I think a lot of people need to wrap their heads around, which is it's not about doing everything perfect day one, buying the perfect diet, getting the perfect macros. It's about implementing habits along the way. And that comes down to knowing your personality. Are you the type
Mhm.
that can handle more than one thing at a time? Can you do two, three things at a time and do it a little bit faster? Great if you can, but 99% of people do well with one thing at a time. So, because right now, everybody listening, I would assume most are very busy. So, if you're busy and you don't have the capacity to get long workouts in, to cook these crazy meals, what makes you think you can handle these like arbitrary rules that are like three, four, five things long?
Right.
One habit at a time and build and stack and solidify as you go. That way you never have to start over.
It sounds so logical. It feels almost so challenging in that I think as humans, we want to have sort of these binary rules in place of like, right, especially when we're busy and have so much stuff going on. It's like, man, it's a whole nother thing to think about. Just tell me what to do, right? Which is why like these diets are so popular. They're so black and white. Okay, if I just eat these foods, if I just avoid these foods, well, seemingly that's simple enough, which we can agree is actually not simple. But instead, you're suggesting, okay, if we simply focus on some realistic behaviors one at a time, sort of this habit stacking approach, um, then that's going to be the impetus to help us create long-term change, which I 100% agree and can appreciate. But help us understand what that could potentially look like and how you would reinforce this with a client, for long-term success.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a million different routes you could take. It really depends on the person. And this is honestly where having a professional helps because it's like you can go off of somebody else's system that worked for them and go with whatever like habits they went with, and it will or will not work for you. But it really comes down to knowing yourself and knowing what the bottlenecks are in your specific plan. Now, that being said, for most people, it is having some sort of a foundation as far as nutrition is concerned. Like, do we do the basics well? Like, let's forget macros. Let's forget doing all these crazy protocols. Do you eat protein at every meal?
Hmm.
And does that get you around the 20-gram mark? Like, is it a true serving of protein? Or does it just say high protein on the package and you're just like, all right, good enough? Do you have vegetables or fruit at every single meal? Most
Hmm.
people do not. Do we get enough fiber throughout the day? Most people are way under on that. And those three things in themselves will drastically change your health and put you in a position where you're not starving all the time. You're going to have more energy. And that's a really good place to start. But the problem is people try and skip that step because it's not shiny enough. It's not sexy enough.
Yeah.
And that's really where most people need to start.
Hey, it is. And it's so challenging. I say this from a coaching, with my coaching hat on standpoint of like, it's challenging again, because as a consumer, we want more clear cut, like just tell me what to do. And unfortunately, and fortunately, it takes very concerted effort, action, planning, preparation to be able to do the things that you just outlined, right? It's easy enough for us to be able to say, hey, get 20, 25, 30, 40 grams of protein with each meal, eat vegetables and or a fruit with your meals. Make sure, you're getting enough fiber. How are we managing our hunger between meals? But again, all of that takes work to be able to say, all right, well, what am I cooking? Where am I, purchasing these foods? How much do I need? How do I prepare it in ways where it's going to taste good? And there's a lot of skills involved in this kind of preparation and nutritional, strategic process. How would you encourage people to think about it? Or what have you found works well for your clients as a perhaps hierarchy to start to implement?
Yeah, I mean, like I was just saying with the protein and veggies, that's a really simple way that kind of takes out a lot of the guesswork. If we're looking for this strategy that is just do this, just ask yourself before you have a meal, where's the protein, where's the veg? And that is a very simple mindset to take that'll guide most people in the right direction. Now, you could learn what a lean source of protein is and go down that rabbit hole. But if we're talking like step one, like bare minimum basics, that's a really good spot to start with. Like, let's get protein and let's get vegetables. And I know I cater more towards the moms who are very, very used to pigeon portions. So when it comes to that, I like implementing the one plate rule where it's like when you have an actual meal, have a real meal. And that helps in two ways, because I'm sure the dudes can appreciate this as well. When you stick to one standard size plate for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that allows you to, one, not overeat because there's a no stacking rule. So it's just fill the plate up. And two, it makes sure that you don't undereat because you're not allowed any blank space either. So if you can do something basic, like let's get protein and veg and put it on a plate and have this one plate rule, you could do that in any situation, wherever you go. And that's the real problem a lot of people have, which is these situations that aren't ideal. So start with these flexible approaches, and then you can turn up the dial and really start to optimize from there.
I like that way of thinking about thing applies to our kind of type A person because it still allows them to establish some kind of clear-cut rules and objectives and intentions around their meals to say, okay, I'm committed to 3 or 4 meals throughout the day. I know that at each of these meals, I'm committed to having a portion of protein, to filling my plate with vegetables or having a piece of fruit or both. And that way I can kind of, intentionally start to think about and visualize what that looks like, as well as psychologically prepare and logistically prepare for, okay, how am I going to ensure that that is going to happen? Like, where are we going to eat? Is that something that I can build out at a restaurant? Or where am I going? Am I going to a, holiday party or whatever? Is that something that I can build out? So I definitely appreciate that. Now, one of the things with the population that we work with, right? We work with mothers and fathers, men and women over 40, typically. And it's during these aging years, right, that things start to change. And we start to experience some hormonal decline, different hormonal rhythms. We're just experiencing, more joint pain, kind of sleep disturbances, perhaps more quote unquote stubborn body fat. How do you encourage people to leverage their nutrition, or how does this way of utilizing nutrition impact hormones positively for our audience listening?
Yeah. Before I dive into that, I think it's really important to understand, because a lot of this hormonal talk and like all these influences that happen as we age, it can feel very daunting and overwhelming and almost feel like it puts somebody in a victim mindset where it's like, I'm just a slave to my body changing. When in reality, what's happening is what these hormonal shifts are doing are really just setting an environment. Now, if you fuel that environment, that will lead to gaining unwanted body fat and feeling crappy. But the key is not to, when I say fuel, overeat. So when it comes to overeating, that's the real driver in all of this, because you could have world's worst hormones. If you eat absolutely nothing, you're still losing weight. It's not going to feel good. You're probably going to look like crap, but you still will. So that's very important to understand to start. Now, when it comes to what influences overeating, it's usually people feeling like crap. They don't have energy. They don't have anything pushing them in the right direction because they feel like absolute garbage, which can be improved through things like eating better and moving more. So that's kind of the frame of mind I like to take, which is let's eat good to feel good. So that way we put ourselves in a better position hormonally. So not only are we able to burn the body fat, we are also able to take it off the areas that we want to. And when you move more, you sleep better, which is the king and queen of hormonal health is sleep. So if you are able to move more, that's going to allow you to sleep better. And when you sleep better, you are more energized and you feel better throughout the day. And when you're more energized throughout the day, you're going to more likely make better food decisions. And on top of that, when you sleep better, the decision-making part of your brain is in a much better state. It's not as fatigued and you're more likely to make good food decisions. So it all kind of works together for this formula for success. Now, it could be a formula for failure if we don't take care of ourselves and let it kind of take the reins and push us in a negative direction. But it also can work very, very well together to create this symphony.
Yeah, and I appreciate how you framed it because it really is this feed forward cycle and not embracing this victim mentality of understanding, listen, yes, just because hormones can and do change as we get older doesn't mean you can't still feel, perform, look the very best that you have. You have the ability to completely control, outside of obviously menopause, like your hormones are going to decline, but you still have the ability to pull the levers that are going to be involved in muscle mass and blood sugar regulation and energy production and feelings of well-being and all of that kind of stuff. And all of that comes from that symphony, so to speak. Now, what is one of the or a couple of the biggest obstacles that you face, right? So we've kind of discussed getting started in the gym and that whole progressive overload approach of kind of building volume and intensity and driving lean muscle tissue. And by the way, I'm happy to dive back into that, especially as it relates to nutrition. And we're talking nutrition and establishing healthy eating behaviors here into the new year as an opportunity to drive improved health, weight loss, improved confidence, and long-term sustainable change. When someone's starting to implement these things, what are some of the potential obstacles that they're going to experience along the way that you run into perhaps frequently?
There's a lot. There are a lot. And this is why so many people struggle to stay consistent and keep it in the routine. But the big one is time and energy. So when it comes to time, like when it comes to exercise, preparing meals, it needs to be time friendly. We can't follow these strict guidelines and these strict rules that don't serve us in our specific situations. So let's not force feed these protocols that don't do us any good. And then when it comes to energy, make sure that you're able to commit enough time to the point where you can get enough good sleep. Like if you are not exercising right now and you sleep like shit. Oh, sorry. Can I curse?
Oh,
on
yeah,
here?
you're good. Let her rip.
All right. I don't curse very often, but sometimes they slip. But if you sleep like absolute shit and you don't exercise and then you start exercising, that could literally change your life. Like that could be a night and day switch where all of a sudden you're sleeping like a baby because now you have a reason to be tired. And when you get some sunlight and stuff, that could also be a big help as well. But I'm going to go down a rabbit hole. I know I'm going to get off track here, but
No,
those
that's
were
okay.
like the two big things is like, let's make sure it's appropriate for your lifestyle and your needs and give yourself a reason to be tired so that you can sleep properly and you have enough energy. And if you can, I know like there's a lot of conversation around getting to bed earlier, waking up earlier, but make up your mind as far as your expectations go around sleep. So if you're willing to sacrifice an hour or two because that's the only time you get with your spouse where you're not with the kids because they're finally asleep, then just accept the fact that you are going to be a little bit low energy the next day, but you still need to push through and you still need to do the things that are necessary. It's going to be harder, but you made that decision actively. You're not just this victim to, oh, I just have no energy. I don't know why.
Hey guys, I want to interrupt this conversation briefly with an exciting announcement. If you're a father and struggling to lose the pounds that have crept on over the years, I understand your challenge. You're juggling a successful career, a loving family, and now You're looking to regain that energy and physique that seems to have slipped away. And that's exactly why I created Prime Fit Operating System. Prime Fit OS is a unique hybrid coaching program designed specifically for men like you. Now, you guys know me, we're not about quick fixes or impossible routines. Instead, we focus on real sustainable change through personalized nutrition and science-driven strength training, all wrapped up in a supportive community with expert guidance directly from me and my 20 years of experience working with men just like you. Imagine mastering your nutrition without restrictive dieting, getting stronger and leaner, and boosting your overall energy, all without overwhelming your already busy schedule. With Prime Fit OS, you're getting more than just a cookie cutter nutrition and fitness plan. You're embarking on a transformative journey that fits into your life, not the other way around. So, if you're ready to take the first step towards a healthier, leaner, stronger, more energetic, confident, ass-kicking you, join us over at Prime Fit Operating System. Trust me, guys, your family, your career, and most importantly, you will thank you for it. So if you guys are interested in getting started and want to find out more about the program, let's chat. Just head over to primefitos.com/call and grab a time on my calendar. Remember, it's your time to be at your prime. You know, when you are discussing the value of sleep, it's, one of the things that we are constantly evaluating and speaking with clients around is the importance of having the routine. And I think when we talk about limiting factors to people's success, it really revolves around having a lack of structure and having a lack of routine. And so we talked about, establishing realistic goals of like getting to the gym, having it. And I talked about, show me your calendar and I'll show you your priorities. So having it on your calendar, having your movement on your calendar, having your meals on your calendar, having your prep time on your calendar. But this also applies to our parasympathetic time, our rest, digest, relax time. So whether it's hanging out with the spouse, having a clear-cut and consistent, even on the weekend, bedtime routine, having a clear-cut and consistent wake-up routine, right? Even on the weekend. Like, these are very relevant because we are very cyclical, hormonally driven, light-driven, circadian-driven individuals to the degree that we set these rhythms in place around blood sugar regulation, around stress hormones. And so this is where it is, yes, the quality and the quantity of sleep, but we control that by virtue of these routines. And I think if we can bookend our day by having some non-negotiable wake and sleep routines, we can really set the stage for success. And so, yeah, that's definitely going to bed, early enough, waking up early enough in line with the cycle of the sun, and that's going to change. But I just couldn't help but, because you mentioned sleep and sunlight, so I couldn't help but not mention that structure and that routine component.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up routine because I think a lot of people also just have a routine that is not conducive to the goals that they say that they want. Like, big thing that comes to mind is consistently drinking alcohol. Like, if you are consistently drinking almost every night, if not every night, and you want to get better sleep and you want to get good results in the gym and you want to have more energy, that just doesn't jive. I mean, I'd love for it to, because life would be a lot more fun,
Right.
But that just isn't the deal. That's not how our bodies work. And sometimes doing like micro challenges can help a ton with changing your routine. Just challenging yourself to say, you know what? I'm going to, for just a week, like a short-term challenge, just a week, I'm going to hit the bed. I'm going to make sure I'm lying in bed. Don't put pressure on yourself to fall asleep. Just say, I'm going to be in bed at X time. And I'm just not going to drink during that time. And I'm going to see what happens. Like, don't go in expecting miracles. Just say, I just want to see how my body responds. And that feedback of feeling good for the first time in possibly years can really enforce better behaviors going forward.
To be honest, I haven't really thought about it, but we often encourage like a dry January, and especially when people are uber motivated, because without fail, you see and experience such a drastic change in your energy and your quality of sleep and your digestion and your mood and your productivity and your focus when we are eliminating the alcohol. And then it therefore, carries over into improving in all of these other areas. So it's remarkable how intertwined all of these things are. And that's, if people take nothing else from these couple of conversations, it's really how we're kind of circumnavigating the the lifestyle portion of like, okay, this is about nutrition and exercise, but it's more about everything else, right? It's more about the mindset. It's more about your habitual routines, what you can realistically commit to, identifying your limiting, behaviors and the potential obstacles that are going to get in the way, and figuring out a clear-cut structure and habitual routine that can help you blaze your path through. So I think those are all, extremely valuable, and especially giving yourself the opportunity to like, listen, let's just agree. Alcohol is not doing us any favors. It doesn't mean it can't be there, but I do think we need to give ourselves opportunities to truly experience what it feels like without it, so that we can be our own best nutrition detective and determine, if and how we're going to leverage it, and when, right?
Yep, exactly. Exactly. It's just, I mean, it's an all-encompassing thing that it feels overwhelming. I know we're talking about a lot of things all right now, but if anybody could just do one thing, like I know we talked about it in the previous podcast, if you could just take one of these little things we're talking about and give it a try, it's going to be amazing.
As we wrap things up, um, we've given people a lot of fodder here around the nutrition and the exercise, the lifestyle, components. Let's talk setting a realistic timeline here,
All right.
because, right, because I think that it's totally understandable for people to want to be aggressive coming out of the gate, of the new year. And I want to set some realistic expectations for people of what they should, what is realistic progress? What should people be looking for and feeling and experiencing? And what should the timeline kind of be for them, depending on, their goals? Kind of what comes to mind in terms of, and what do you feel like sharing around that?
Yeah, I will say this. A lot of people get very fixated on the weight, and especially if you're a beginner, it's not always ideal to do that. Because if you're in a position where you're going to start exercising and you're going to be dialing in your nutrition, the scale might read zero, but your body can be completely different. You could do what's called a body recomp and experience amazing benefits. But then if you hop on the scale and you see zero, you're like, well, I guess this isn't working.
Right.
So what I like to tell people to aim for, at least based on my experience with the ladies that I work with, is if you could get about a half an inch to an inch reduction in waist and or hips month to month, you're on track. So basically that's like a size in clothing or dress down every 2 to 4 months. But I'm lowballing it because I've seen some people drop a crazy amount of inches in like as little as a month or two because their bodies were so ready for the change.
100%. Yeah. And that's where objective data comes into play, beyond just scale weight, right? Beyond just scale weight. So we look at certainly the objective and subjective data is understanding, okay, scale weight still is relevant. It certainly is still relevant depending on how much weight you have to lose, but I especially appreciate it just as an observational and awareness tool relative to your behaviors the day, 2 days before, right? Understanding like, hey, I had a couple glasses of wine last night. Now my weight's up like 2 pounds overnight. Did you gain body fat? No, you're retaining a bunch of water, right? So it can be useful in that component, but then understanding, okay, circumference measurements is going to be a much better, objective metric of ongoing change, especially week over week, and especially for females, than relying on the scale, looking at pictures, right? Of course, there's some subjectivity there, but we can definitely see differences over the short term. Relying on metrics in the gym. Am I getting stronger with my lifts? Am I progressing from week to week, right? And then even objectively looking at like sleep quantity. Am I sleeping more? Or again, subjectively, like my sleep quality. Am I getting deeper quality sleep? Am I waking up feeling more refreshed? And then looking at factors like our hunger, our energy, our cravings, our mood, our digestion, our cognitive function, our libido, our emotional state, our relationships. Am I getting along better? Am I less moody? Right? Am I more amicable? All of those things, it's essential, in my opinion, for us to consider those in the change process, right? As opposed to just being myopically fixated on the scale and then getting pissed off when you don't see it changing every single day. That is setting yourself up for failure, is setting unrealistic expectations around even believing in the first place that that could ever happen, which it doesn't.
Yep. I didn't realize we were going all in. I love that. I love that we
Yeah, I
covered
mean,
like the whole
we
spectrum. I
really
love
did.
that. And it does come down to having those data points because I think a lot of people only focus on the scale and they don't have all this extra data to look at to make an informed decision on if they
Yeah.
should change the routine or whatever. And also, an important thing to know too is know yourself because there are some people that do thrive weighing in every single day,
Mhm.
and that's a certain personality type. And then there's others, like a lot of the ladies I work with, we do monthly
Mhm.
metrics where it's like we do 1 week out of the month, and if you weigh in and everything looks about right, awesome. But if you feel like you might be off or you had a weird night the night before or it's a fluctuation
Mhm.
week due to hormones, then we weigh in a couple more times. But it's like
Yeah.
you do it once a month. So be very conscious, everybody listening, of what data points drive the behaviors that you need to keep doing. Because if you take so many data points that you fall off because you weigh in daily and it just discourages you and makes you feel like shit, then probably not for you. But if it does give you a positive feedback loop of, okay, I understand my body, this is a fluctuation that I should expect day after day after day, and you can treat it like data and not get emotional, then do it. Like, do whatever puts you in a position where you can do the behaviors that are required going forward.
And it's just at the end of the day, it's like we need to act out of logic and reason and not out of emotion. And that's hard. It's really hard to
Yeah.
do. And it's easy for me to say that, but that's where I want to give you, those of you listening, and for Bryan's audience, the best opportunity to be successful. And this is where it's so nuanced and like, listen, we got you, we got your back, we're here for you. But it's about helping you understand who you are, what you need, how to establish more awareness around this process, and how to leverage to your benefit, by the way, all of the things that you've done in the past, all of the things that you want to do so that you can be, successful moving forward. Those are all opportunities, right? Those are all advantages that you've had the opportunity to learn about yourself and what works and perhaps what doesn't. And that's a good thing, right? Because that's why you're here. That's why you're talking to us. And let's use that and not make you feel like, oh, I'm a failure, because that just doesn't exist. It's just learning and growing. And so, all right. Amazing conversation, Bryan. This has been really fun, kind of two-part episode, and having the opportunity to speak with you and share your wisdom and knowledge. For my audience here, hopefully you guys are catching this part two, and you did actually stop the episode and go back and listen to part one on the Fit 40 podcast. By the way, the link's right below. If you haven't, now is your chance to do that. But before you do, if this has been helpful for you, any component of this has been helpful for you, do me a favor, share this with someone whom you think could benefit, leave us a positive rating or review, and in case they're driving and can't look at their phone right now, Bryan, where can people find more about you?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate this. It was an absolute blast. So you could definitely check out my podcast. That's like the hub. I
Mhm.
also have a free Facebook community, the Fit 40 family. And across all socials, it's Bryan with a Y, as in yes, Bryan underscore Fit 40, FIT 40. And you can find me Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, you name it, I'm there. TikTok.
Obviously, man, TikTok. Okay, TikTok. That you got me on that. Well, we are speaking the same language, and I love the fact that we're spreading the truth, and you're out there helping a lot of people, a lot of women in the process. And so we'll have to do this again. I look forward to our next conversation, brother. Take care.
Absolutely, looking forward to it.
Thank you so much for listening. And if you found this content valuable, here are 4 ways I can help you in your nutrition journey for free. 1. Grab a free copy of my Fat Loss Fix Guide at fatlossfixguide.com. 2. Join my free group at smartnutritionmadesimple.com. 3. Subscribe to my YouTube channel at smartnutritionmadesimpletv.com. 4. Leave a 5-star rating and positive review so that we can gain access to more nutrition experts ready to share their knowledge with you and ultimately help more people make smart nutrition simple.